Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the M365 FM podcast. Today's guest is someone who has built an incredible reputation across both the Microsoft community and enterprise technology landscape. With over 15 years in technology sector, she is currently the head of professional services with Telefonica Tech's AI Business Solutions division and Microsoft MVP in customer experience and Power Apps. Through her career, she delivered complex Dynamics 365 and Power Platform solutions to major FTSEs organizations, while also becoming one of the most recognizable community leaders in Europe. She serves on Microsoft Global User Group Committee respond, ah, representing Europe, leads both the reading and the London a all-day Dynamics 365 and Power Platform user group, helps organize the Scottish Summit, co-host of the Power Delivery podcast, mentor with the Women in Power platform, and even uh, annual as a part of the UK delegation of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. On top of all these, she became a respected voice on AI legalization, compliance, governance, and responsible adoption. Arti, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I hope I've not forgotten anything.
Oh God, I don't know, maybe, but yes, I don't say no to anything if anyone hasn't guessed from that list. And thank you for that lovely intro. Yeah, I'm involved in a lot of things, but I love it. It keeps me busy.
Yeah, for those who know the MVP speaker and community leader version of Arti, tell us about the person before all that. How did your journey in technology begin?
Yeah, so it happened to me in the way that it does for most people. I find when I ask them about their stories and how they got involved with the Microsoft platform, it's a case of doing a job and then somehow interacting with the software and realizing you quite like it and want to get more involved. That was definitely the case for me. So I was working, having finished my degree and my master's. I went into a job into IT support, and I was working for a facilities management company in the UK, which is where I'm based. And as part of a change in the business and acquiring a new business to bring into our current kind of portfolio of businesses in the facilities management company, they were looking to introduce a CRM system, and we chose Dynamics 365. Well, Dynamics CRM as it was at the time, to implement it. And I worked with a Microsoft partner at the time as the product owner, effectively, to create that solution with them and test it and do the data migration and do the go live and eventually support it. And as part of that process, I just really enjoyed creating that IT system, and I got really heavily involved. And the
Mhm.
partner, the consultants I was working with, joked that I should do this because I was really good and I was getting it and I was really enjoying it. And I didn't really do anything about it at the time. I was very much enjoying where I was. But over the years, then I moved on to other organizations as a Dynamics CRM manager, systems manager. I was a SharePoint manager at one point as well, and I just expanded what I was doing with the system. I worked with other Microsoft partners as the end client, and eventually I got to the point where I knew enough that I felt I could actually come in as a consultant, and that's what I did. I joined the Microsoft partner in the UK, became a consultant, and then eventually I was a principal consultant and a solution architect. And as time went on, so this was over about 15 plus years, as you said in your intro, I eventually then decided to move on to be a delivery lead, which is what I am now for Telefonica Tech. So yeah, it
Oh,
was very much a gradual process over many many years, but it all started with just getting that exposure to the software and really liking the way it worked and the functionality it had and how you could use it.
okay, awesome. Lead professional service teams. Was leadership always an ambition, or did that evolve naturally as your career processed?
It wasn't something I was aiming for necessarily. I always saw myself as part of a delivery team on projects. I didn't ever see myself moving a level above that and overseeing it rather than doing the actual build. But I got to a point where I had the opportunity internally due to the Microsoft partner I was working for being acquired by another bigger partner, I had
Mm.
the opportunity to go for a head of delivery role, and I thought that it would be silly of me not to go for it. I very much owe being in a leadership position now to encouragement though from other people, because when I saw the job description, I felt like maybe I didn't have enough experience to be a delivery lead, having led delivery teams in projects. I thought maybe I was missing kind of key people management, leadership skills. I didn't know if I had enough experience in terms of commercial awareness, managing pre-sales, customer relationships. I wasn't sure if I had that much of the commercial experience around it to be able to be a head of delivery. And I almost talked myself out of it. And I had someone in the business that I reached out and I said, I don't think I should actually go and interview for this because I don't think, this and this and this thing I don't have any experience in at all. And if they're looking for that, then I don't want to waste their time. And she said to me, "Don't even worry about it. Just talk about the things you do know." And sure enough, I got the role, which I was very excited and relieved by because I wasn't really sure I was going to get it because of those reasons. So yeah, and in the end, it didn't really matter because I learned those things in my job, and the fact that I have a technical background helps me support the delivery teams a lot better as well. And I can also, poke my little head into their meetings and go, "What are you building? What's going on? How are you making this?" And we can still have geeky conversations about it, which is really nice.
Oh, this is amazing. Yeah, great career. But you are widely, yeah, recognized for your expertise across Dynamics 365 customer engagement, ERP, and Power Platform. What was it about the Microsoft Business Applications ecosystem that really captured your attention?
So initially, it was the fact that it was fairly straightforward and easy to use as an end user when I was an end user, but also it was very easy to configure in the background, and it's a very logical system, and most kind of software is. So for me, I really like the fact that it was easy and straightforward to use, and you can understand what you were looking at, and you could see how things were linked together. But then also in the background, it was very easy to customize things. Back when I started, we didn't, Power Platform didn't exist, which is unthinkable now. But back then, it was a simpler in a way life. There was no ALM, there was no pipelines. It was just a case of manual deployments, and solution packages and things like that. So the role has changed a lot. But for me, I really enjoyed how easy it was to understand how the solution worked in the background. And I didn't come from a technical background at the time. My education wasn't really in software development or anything like that at all. So for me, I just really liked the fact that it was, if you followed it through and you read through the documentation, you were actually able to pick it up fairly quickly. And getting that experience and being able to create things and change things and develop a system that then was used by people, and it made a difference to them having a system that they were able to use and made their work life better. That was the thing for me that I really liked. When Power Platform came along, and kind of Dataverse to begin with, that just changed it and it made it a lot more useful in terms of having more than one part of the business using a Microsoft solution or a Microsoft tool. So you started seeing these kind of economies of scale between departments and the integration between the different types of the stack. And then obviously the Power Platform itself came along, admin centers came along that linked it all together. And now you can actually have multiple first party apps and multiple solutions, but you can also have things in Azure for governance, Purview, Defender, Foundry now. It's all developing and it's all changing. And that was a nice thing for me as well. It's nice to know something inside out, and definitely in the time when I started, it was you could say I know CRM, I know what's in the CRM system in terms of functionality and how it works. Now it's very very difficult to say that you know everything in the stack. It's impossible. So you have to pick one area, and even then, it's developing so quickly now that your knowledge is out of date very very quickly. So and this wasn't the case when I first started, but it definitely is now. So for me, the fact that it's changing, it's developing, new features are coming out all the time, things are changing all the time. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's also very difficult to and annoying to be like, I just went through this and I thought I knew everything and I do not. And it's but it's really nice, and this is where the community comes in as well.
Cool.
Everyone getting together from different points of view, different product stacks, and actually, the best conversations I have had in the community are with other MVPs or other people in the community that represent different parts of the stack, and discussing the challenges that we may have in CE and the challenges they may have in Azure, or the challenges they have from a security perspective or from a compliance perspective. And that's all very interesting. And the ERP part of it for me was more recent. So when I became head of delivery, I started delivering also ERP projects, and that was something I needed to upskill on because I hadn't spent much time on the ERP space. And that was a very interesting learning curve for me as well, because ERP projects, although some parts of the stack are shared, both as project delivery is different to C projects, but also the way they work and the functionality within D365, FNO, FNCM, however you wanna whatever you wanna call it. It's all really different, and it's a different part of the business, obviously, that uses them, that has different challenges altogether to the operational teams. So all of that was very interesting for me as well. It really has become a huge stack now, and it's very, very difficult to know it all. I think it's more accurate to say I know people that know parts of the stack. So if I have a question about an area I don't know, I will know a person that knows about it, and I can probably go and ask a question. And I think that's the great thing about the community.
Yeah, let's a little bit deep dive in projects. You worked on a lot of projects ranging from relative straightforward implementations to, I think, in at Telefonica, it's a thing that's yeah, hugely complex enterprise transformation. What separates successful projects from unsuccessful ones?
Yeah, there's definitely quite a few things, and it depends sometimes on the project. There will be different challenges, I think, sometimes for ERP projects versus C projects, for example, or more recently, agentic AI projects. I think it's fair to say that there is some kind of key things that happen between successful and unsuccessful projects, and a lot of the time, a project won't fail because of the technology. It will fail because of the people.
Mhm.
You could have the most brilliantly, technologically speaking, built system, but if the people that are supposed to use it don't, then that investment in the technology will have come to nothing. And a lot of the time, we may think of the end position of a project being the go live, but really, from a organization's point, putting a system live is only the beginning for them,
Yeah.
because the value has to come after that point,
Mhm.
and the benefit has to come after that point. So getting to the go live is great, but that's only the beginning. I think a lot of organizations sometimes underestimate the amount of time that is needed by their SMEs
Mm.
to work on a project, to make it successful from a technical perspective. So people will have their day jobs in that organization. They will then be asked to fulfill a project role, like they might be a product owner, or they might be testing, or they may need to do UAT, or they might be a super user. And a lot of effort has to go into both the discovery sessions, so telling the consultants what they need, how they need it, getting the user stories written, the acceptance criteria, the test scripts that they need to create, data migration checks. There's
Mm.
an awful lot of effort that is needed from the organization before they can go live. And I've seen situations where projects have not been successful because that time couldn't be given, or those people had to rush through things, and then you could end up with a system where it would go live, but because processes had not been tested end to end, you had issues at go live. It could be the case that there wasn't much support in terms of super users or training internally by the organization, so people had a difficult experience to begin with the software, learning how to use it and getting frustrated because of that, or missing kind of key information, or the system itself in some cases not being as simple as it could be, having kind of overcomplicated processes that lead to overcomplicated systems that affect the adoption. Um, it really depends on how you define a successful project, to be honest, because different parts of the project teams will define it differently. From a Microsoft partner's perspective, you may consider a project successful if it's gone live, the customer is happy, and hypercare is finished. But from a client's perspective, the project will only be considered successful if it meets the KPIs and the metrics that they want to see out of it. Perhaps it could be, how long the sales process might take for sales people to complete before the system was put in place, or in terms of, if you're doing agentic AI, for example, how much more productive is the team? What benefits are they getting from using agentic AI? Have they defined that before they started? A lot of the time with agentic AI, some people will start with the solution, not the problem. So, AI is the answer. What is the question? And a lot of the time, these kind of pilots, AI pilots, can be unsuccessful because the AI is being introduced, but there is no problem being solved. It's more of an experiment than an actual project with aims and objectives. So it is really a case of having a look at what you're trying to achieve by doing this project, whether it's the ERP, Power Platform, agentic AI, it doesn't really matter, and really identifying exactly what you're aiming for, and who it's for. Is it a project for a team? Is it the whole organization? Um, is it the case of depending on other systems? How complicated is it going to be?
Mm.
Who is going to own it once it's live as well? Sometimes I see projects fail because of lack of ownership internally, and in some cases, as I said, over engineering, and that can be a real problem. And sometimes the ongoing cost of having that solution live, particularly now with agentic AI solutions, isn't really considered. So you can get a bit of regret as an organization for putting something in place that then is very costly as time goes on. Yeah, particularly now with agentic solutions and tokens, and the cost of that, it can be a bit unpredictable. So, and of course, licenses are changing all the time, as we know, and the structure of them, and what is and isn't included in a license, and all of that stuff. So it's o- yeah, it really depends on how you define success, and from whose point of view you look at it. But I would say these are the things, the areas, I should say, that will make or break the project. From my experience across them.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I think, or I have seen you are a co-host of the Power Delivery podcast, which often, yeah, focus on implementation best practice. What are some of the recurring themes you see when projects begin to struggle?
I think projects begin to struggle sometimes when there is a lack of time from SMEs. There can be kind of a slow progress, or progress that has been quick before kind of slows down a bit, and there isn't that much that can be progressed and signed off, and your go live slips basically. That is one way that you could have a problem in a project. Another one could be scope control, scope creep. If you're not controlling the requests from the business, sometimes you can start wanting to have an MVP, and then a lot of different organizations, and sorry, a lot of different departments in an organization can want different things, and they might come with a bucket list of things that they would like for the system to do, and you try to create a lot of functionality that then makes the project run very
Mhm.
long, and also it takes a lot more time to put all of that together and test it and so on. It creates additional complexity when in some cases, don't get me wrong, complexity sometimes is needed if you've got complex processes. But what I see a lot is that there's a lot of requirements that are marked as MVP must have on day one, when
Mm.
actually the organization would be better off to have those on a phase two, and actually have a system that is very simple to begin with, so to speak, that can get embedded. People can start using it, they can give that initial feedback, and then build on it and keep uh, working and iterating through development cycles and giving additional functionality as they go on. Because the longer you leave it to give a solution to the end users that will be using it, the more likely it is that it won't meet the requirements of those users. And if you don't give them visibility early on as you're building that solution as well, so that they can give you their feedback and they can tell you what is and isn't going to work for them, I think that's where you can get into trouble as well. There's nothing worse, I think, than having a development team going into a dark room for weeks or months and
Yeah.
then coming out with something that
Mm.
hasn't had any of the end users give or SMEs give feedback to it at all, because sometimes people will tell you what they want, and actually what they want is something completely different. And you won't know that, and they won't know that until they see and play with something in front of them and go, actually, you know what? I know I told you I wanted this, but actually, what would really be good is that. And if you don't get that feedback, you miss out on that information, but also you miss out on their engagement with the project and them feeling like this is a real thing that they have an invested interest in, that they have helped happen. If you leave them at arm's length until the go live or the end user training, they won't feel like they've been part of creating the system, and therefore they will be less likely to feel invested in using it and adopting it and making it a success. And change management is a great thing that makes a project, or breaks a project if it's not thought about from the very beginning. You have to think about the go live and the adoption of the system from the moment you start a project, if not before, and figure out how are you going to engage the people that are going to drive that project forward, and who are those people that are going to be owning that system and driving its adoption, because that's where your benefit is going to come from, not from having a successful project implementation. And I think a lot of the time there isn't much consideration given to that, or people are in roles that are very they don't have the bandwidth in their role to put the right time in and effort to make these things happen, because it does take a lot of time and it does take a lot of effort. The organizations that have done that well tend to, in some cases, backfill people to allow them to have that space to drive this forward until the project is finished and the adoption has happened and a lot of time has passed since the go live, that it has been bedded in and implemented, and that kind of high level of support needed at the beginning after go live isn't there anymore. But not every organization can afford to do this, honestly. So it's always a case of a juggling act, I think. And yeah, it's not always easy to do. Many projects fail. And there's, we could have an episode just talking about why projects fail, I think. And we definitely do in our podcast as well, on the Part Delivery podcast. We talk a lot about changes that are happening in the stack, what they mean, and what you need to look out for, and the things that you need to consider, because we try to help people avoid those pitfalls of things that can go wrong if people don't think about it. And particularly with agentic AI, you've got different ways that you could achieve the same result. So it's a case of actually thinking about what the best route to solve your problem is as well. So as time goes on, I think it gets more complicated.
This is awesome, and there was one thing. I think a lot of companies use change management as buzzword, and you have both perspectives. So you come from the technical side. Now you're leading the professional service team. How has your definition of change management changed over this, or from this both perspective?
Yeah, I think I've become much more aware of the conversations being had at executive and senior level around the project. So I've before, when I was not head of delivery and I wasn't part of those conversations taking place, because traditionally delivery teams will focus on the day to day, as you would expect, delivery of the project, but they wouldn't look at the strategic direction of that project or have conversations with the executives of the organization the project is being done with necessarily. Now that I get to see that side of it, I'm much more aware of the challenges that the organizations have when looking to use Microsoft technology that I didn't before. Before, I had a different level of understanding in terms of the day to day, the system managers, the obviously the end users themselves. But I didn't really know from a KPIs, a return on investment perspective. That didn't necessarily come into those conversations. It was more focused around how can we create a system that meets the requirements fully and meets the acceptance criteria and works well and efficiently. And the IT team or the business teams that were going to support it, have they got enough knowledge and experience and understand the system well enough? Have we done the right handover for them to be self-reliant after we're gone? That was more my focus when I was part of a delivery team and when I was managing the consultants that I was working with to build those solutions. That was where we focused, and that's where we probably should have focused as well. But being a head of delivery now, I have those conversations around, we're investing this much in putting this system in. What benefits are we going to get? How are we going to make sure that we have the right solution in place? What do we do after it's been put in place? How do we manage upgrades? How do we manage new functionality? what can we do in terms of agentic AI, obviously coming into it now? How are we going to use AI in our existing systems? How do we need to change our processes? How do we need to change as an organization what we do and who does what? How do we bring agents into our workflows? Who owns them? What
mm,
does that mean? So there's
mm,
a lot broader conversations that I'm part of now that I wasn't at before. And it's a lot more of a strategic view and long-term view on the technology than a shorter term view that I had before. And that's what makes it interesting for me as well. I know technically what is available, and it's about then having conversations about what that means for the humans using that technology and what that means for organizations long term implementing that technology. So I look at it from a different perspective now, and it's really it's a great. I feel privileged to be in that position to be able to have those conversations with senior level executives and understand their challenges and how we can help in what we do. So I think it gives you a lot of a better perspective of the impact the projects have more outside of the immediate people using it. It allows you to see the organizational impact as well, which is great.
awesome. Um, I I think a little about agentic AI. A lot of people, especially on LinkedIn, every time I think nearly, I don't know, a lot of posts are about agentic AI. But for listener who hear the term, yeah, well, read the term frequently, but aren't actually sure what it means, how would you explain agentic AI?
Well, that is a very good question. So, in terms of the Microsoft stack itself, there's a number of different AI solutions. It's really when it comes to agentic AI, it's not really one thing. It's a group of AI systems that have agency, which is why we call them agentic. It means that they can autonomously make decisions, take actions to achieve a goal, and they're not simply responding to a prompt. They are actually autonomously doing something. They have that agency. Um, it's really a case of having. If we think about the things that we've discussed so far, Power Platform, Dynamics 365, first party apps, C systems, ERP systems, they themselves are not agentic because the human has to make decisions. So um, they are not acting autonomously, effectively. Where you have agentic AI is where you've got an agent or a solution that is acting autonomously to achieve an outcome, and it's not just producing outputs. And historically, we've we've used systems as humans to produce outputs. So it's a case of moving beyond just providing answers to executing tasks and executing workflows and working independently with minimal human input. So it really, from a definition perspective at a high level, that's what I would say. There's also different types of agentic AI. So agentic AI itself is a bit of a category. So it is all based on planning and executing actions. But then you have generative AI. You've got co-pilot style assistants. They're also considered AI. But the agentic part of it is particularly that automation, which we're seeing a lot of organizations looking to use right now.
Mm, what excites you, especially when we think about Microsoft? Yeah, how they heading up with agents?
I think it's the way our role is changing when it comes to interacting with technology. I think this is the main thing for me because traditionally it's a case of getting an answer from a system, whereas now it's a case of having agents say, I will solve the problem for you. And it's not deterministic anymore. So we can't really test
Mm,
agentic solutions the way we would test first party apps because we can't really predict what they're going to say or how they're going to say it. Now, this is changing a bit with creating, for example, agent evaluations or evals and things like that, where we're making it a lot more stringent as to trying to create some guidelines as to how they will behave. But it's very much an evolving technology at the moment. For me, I think it's a case of knowing that we are no longer central to the use of technology. It used to be that the human being was central in the way technology was used, but now we are in the periphery. We are not in the center anymore. We are brought into a system, or we will be once we get fully autonomous agentic solutions out there. We will be coming in by exception. And I truly believe that we will get to the point, and in some cases, some organizations are already at that point. Those that are very, very much, as Microsoft says, in the frontier. Um, so I think it's a very much a learning curve, but at the same time, we need to pace ourselves. And of course, you've got things like quantum AI that's going to come along and change things for us again. So this is only the beginning of a very long road.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations are rushing to deploy AI actually. What question should leaders be asking before they start?
Why are we doing this? And what I mean by that is, um, we shouldn't just be jumping on the bandwagon of the latest technology and doing it purely because we feel like there's a competitive advantage out there that we are going to lose if we don't jump on. Although that is technically speaking true, because if our competitors are looking to use AI to become more efficient, or quicker in responding or providing a better customer experience, however you wanna define your competitive advantage in your industry or in your organization, I think it's important to know that organizations have existed for many, many, many decades, years, since commerce began. And your business strategy can't be an AI strategy. And what I mean by that is the reason your organization exists and what you're trying to do in the world should be the same before and after AI. Because at the end of the day, AI is just the latest technological tool we can use to achieve that strategy. It's not a strategy in itself. So I always get a little bit uneasy when organizations say, our strategy is to use AI to become the best in X, Y, and Z. And I'm thinking, well, okay, great, but what do you exist as an organization? How is AI going to help you continue to be the best in what you can do? So you definitely see a difference between new companies and older, more established companies in terms of how they approach the technology. And as I said, it is going to change. It's a case of identifying also what that means for us as organizations. We are changing what it means to be a insert role, job role here, whatever our job role is right now. So at the moment, I might, for example, if I take myself as an example, as a head of delivery, I might be doing my job and I have a job description that doesn't include being the manager of agents. But I am sure at some point our job descriptions will start to change to say that the head of delivery manages X, Y, and Z, and is responsible for X, Y, and Z in the organization, and is also responsible as the owner of the up timesheet approvals agent and the resource scheduling agent. And we will actually have job roles that are a combination of a human being and agents. The job description will involve both. And I think that changes what we do at work, what it means to be any job type, any job description will change. I think our processes will change, and we will become this hybrid way of living and working, and then potentially morph again into something different. So yeah, it's for me, it's very interesting to see how we make the transition and how far do we go with trusting, because at the end of the day, I think it really does come down to trust. How far do we trust the agency that we will give these tools, and also, unfortunately, where might things go wrong? Because we love to think of these things as things that will only be used for good, but there is absolutely
Mm,
a people out there, groups, whatever you want to call them, that will be looking to use these not for good, but as a weapon. And it's a case of being very vigilant to that, and finding ways to use the tools that we've got in a responsible, secure way. And I think that's where the challenge is going to be, even more so as time goes on and we start providing this agency to very critical systems, and even having a purchasing agent that buys things for us, that could go very wrong. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we both create the infrastructure, but also create the levels of security needed to be able to use these things without risk.
Mm, awesome. I like a little bit speak about the trust topic, and I think one area where you become particularly well known is AI governance and compliance. And yeah, many organizations are enthusiastic about AI, but nervous about the regulatory landscape. How would you describe the current state of AI legislation globally?
Chaos. So we've got there is a lot of focus at the moment on, first of all, creating guardrails for AI use, and that is because initially when AI solutions started being made available, there was a question of, do we need to regulate AI or not? We've very much moved past that now. It's really a question of how far do we need to regulate it without stifling innovation,
Mm,
and allowing the benefits to be realized without actually making it so controlled that we're not actually allowing the benefits to be seen. So a lot of different countries will have different approaches to this. There's over 70 countries in the world that have some level of legislation or regulations in place or guidance, but it really varies. In the EU, we're very much in a better situation of having the EU AI Act, very much a legal law that governs how AI is to be developed and used within the EU, but it only applies within the EU.
mm,
It is a very much a good basis on which I think other legislation will be brought out. But if you look at the US, for example, there is no federal law. There's over 1,000 state bills. Every state does its own thing. There is lots of conflicts, and there is that question around, how do we actually get to a point where this is a little bit more straightforward in terms of at federal level. So it's a lot more difficult when you look at it at from a US perspective. And then you've got things in between. So in the UK, for example, we do not have a law, but we do have sector specific regulations.
mm,
So it really it depends on which sector you're in and what regulations you've got. But then if you're dealing with any part of the EU, or your users are EU located, then the
mm,
EU AI Act applies anyway because it's extraterritorial. So there's all sorts of things that need to be considered. There is really differences at the moment across the board. But I think as time goes on, more and more legislation will be introduced and more regulations will be introduced. The good news is that there's some standards that are being globally recognized. Things like the NIST AI risk management framework that came from the US, very much considered a global standard for doing AI risk management well. There's ISO standards on AI management systems that are certifiable as well. And also on risk management. So there's a lot of guidance there on how to implement regulations and legislation well. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that as time goes on.
mm. Yeah, I think a little bit a hot topic is the EU Act. I think it generates significant discussions in companies, but for organizations that haven't started preparing, what should they be thinking about today? And a second question, can it be, yeah, it's only regulation, or can it also be a chance for companies?
I think it's definitely a chance to consider how they are using AI and making sure they're using AI in a responsible way and a secure way. In terms of what they should be looking at, the EU AI Act really creates a basis on which to do things that should be in place anyway. And what I mean by that is, it's things like having an AI inventory, knowing what AI is being used in your organization and for what use cases. And that is very much required under the EU AI Act as of August 2026 anyway, but it's also best practice to have it. Classifying the risk of each of your AI solutions, is it minimal? Is it limited? Is it high risk? So, are you using, for example, scoring mechanisms and things like that, which are very much high risk? In some cases, depending on what it's for, it might be prohibited. So, it's really understanding what your exposure is from using AI and making sure that you have governance in place. Because they might, as I said, they're unpredictable. So they might go wrong. Do you have the processes in place to monitor that? Is there logging? Do you have that human oversight? In cases where there's privacy impact assessments or data protection impact assessments that need to happen, are those in place? Do you have data loss prevention to ensure your data isn't being used in a way that is non-compliant? How are you doing your risk testing? Do you align with international standards? So all of these things are best practices, and you should have them. And then there is the AI literacy part of it as well. We all have under the UA Act, there is an obligation to provide AI training, but I think generally there is an element of all of us needing to have the right level of literacy for the extent to which we use AI. So if you are obviously a developer creating AI, you should have a high level of AI literacy, particularly when it comes to developing AI in a responsible way, for example. If you're just an end user of it, you need to understand its limitations, ways it can go wrong, bias, the fact that it won't give you the right answer, it will just give you the most probable answer. These are things that people need to understand to evaluate what AI is giving them. And also having the monitoring and the life cycle oversight as well, having that auditability, being able to show that you are compliant in the first place, and that you have control over how the AI is being used, and that you are governing how it's behaving, but also you are controlling how the data that it uses is being used, and securing where it runs and how it runs. All of those things need to be in place to make sure that you are not exposed as an organization, and that you're not exposing the users of AI to unintended consequences. All of that is within the UAA Act, but even if it wasn't, I think it's things that should be in place as a minimum, I would say.
Mm. And I think Microsoft had a lot of solutions. Microsoft Purview, Microsoft Defender, and Azure AI Foundry has also tools for responsible AI adoption. But we have this tool side and we have the people side. Um, h- how good can we use these tools to be safe, be responsible, and how important are or how many persons left are on user training? What did you think these both? Yeah, I think tool thinking companies and people thinking companies.
Yeah, I think you have to be a people thinking company, not a tool thinking company, because I think if you're only looking to implement tools without consideration for the human element of it, you won't get very far unless you're trying to be truly agentic first, which I don't think many organizations are at that stage yet. Um, there is always a balance, I think, between the teams looking to create and use the technology and the risk and compliance teams within organizations, because one is focused on innovation and the other one is more on security and compliance. And I think it's about finding the right balance. And there will be organizations that are more or less risk averse and more or less innovative. And it's okay either way. I think what's important is to identify the right level of innovation for your organization and what you're trying to achieve. Um, in terms of the tools, it really, for me, there's three in the stack that I talk about a lot. Um, from a security perspective, if we take that first, so where and how AI runs, Microsoft has Defender very much driven around or focused on security driven compliance, preventing breaches that could cause regulatory violations. So you can use Defender for things like discovering any AI models, agents, and apps you've got. It helps with that AI inventory, know your enemy, as I say, and then detecting any security risks, things like malicious models or prompt injections, and scanning your models for any vulnerabilities in malware and preventing that all important kind of data exfiltration and abuse as well. And allowing you to have management of that security and constant monitoring. So Defender is great from that perspective as a tool. Then you would have Purview. Purview would not really be used by your security teams. It would be used more from your compliance and governance teams, because it's all about, and your legal teams, of course, it's all about logging AI interactions. So the prompts and the responses for auditing and investigations as needed. You can classify sensitive data that is being used or generated by AI as well. So it allows you to control again what data AI uses, which is extremely important, and applies and enforces policies as well, whether that's sensitivity labels for your data, data loss prevention, or retention policies as well on any AI outputs. Again, extremely important. And giving you that visibility as well in terms of how your solutions are complying. So there's a solution in Purview I talk about a lot, which is the compliance manager, where you can give it any regulation and it will review your solutions and give you a score, and it will tell you exactly what your tasks are and what Microsoft's tasks are as the provider of that model or technology, and it will give you a list of tasks that you need to improve on to increase your compliance score. So it does things like, audits, exports, that kind of thing. And it supports inspections as well and the enforcement of them, which is what's again happening from August 2026. There is, if you're in the EU AI Act space, you have to be able to show that you are monitoring the compliance and the data AI uses, and Purview very much allows you to do that. For most organizations, I think those two would suffice if they're not creating their own models or customizing them. But if you are creating your own custom model through Copilot Studio, or if you're using Foundry as well, then Foundry itself governs how AI behaves, and that's very important as well because it's all about governance and having responsible AI operationally, really. So we're talking about allowed and disallowed models through your Azure policies. So having that model governance, but also guardrails and content controls, safety filters, output constraints, that kind of thing. And also the actual documentation of your models, your versions, the purpose of them existing in the first place, and policy checks, guardrail violations. All of those things are done within Foundry. There's a lot more that we need to worry about the moment we start customizing or creating our own agents or models, because we are responsible for what they're doing, how they're operating, and we really need to make sure that we have evaluated their safety and also documented the data sets and making sure that we've risk assessed them. So there's a lot more we need to worry about if we have customized them. But I'm not sure that many organizations are extensively doing this yet. But I think in the future we will see a lot more of that for sure.
How do you handle those regulation topics without slowing down innovation in your company, or from how can we do this?
I think the important thing with legislation is that it doesn't change very often because it is set by lawmakers. So it doesn't tend to change very fast. Regulations move much faster. I think the best way right now, if you're using the Microsoft stack, is to use Purview and the compliance manager because they keep the regulations up to date. So you can constantly evaluate really your solutions and see where the changes are and when you're not compliant. A lot of the time, these things are going to be communicated well, and your compliance and your legal teams will very likely be paying attention to that to identify what applies. The main thing to remember, because all of this can sound very, very complex, and people can worry a lot when it comes to legal obligations around AI.
Mm.
It really depends on what you're using AI for and whether it is truly autonomous and whether it is actually making its own decisions, or if you're using it in a very minimal, limited risk way, because you won't have that much compliance or legal obligations concerns if you're using AI in a fairly, dare I say, basic way. Uh, you won't have much exposure, but you do need to do that assessment as a minimum to identify who's using AI in your organization, what are they using it for, and do you have any exposure there in terms of data, in terms of risk, in terms of security. That is, I think, the important thing, because you need to know your enemy. The other thing to be aware of as well is, I think what is particularly important that I don't see that many organizations doing, it's important to have an acceptable use policy for AI in your organization. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people will be using their own business accounts to user accounts. I mean by that, to use AI that you may not know of. So rogue AI or shadow AI is very much a thing, and it's really a case of doing that analysis within your systems and your tenants to identify who is using what that you don't know about, I think there is this element at the moment of, because everyone is experimenting, which again, you don't want to stop people from doing so because this is new technology and you want to encourage innovation, you want to encourage new ways of working, but at the same time, you need to be doing that in a secure, responsible way. It's about getting visibility of what people are trying to use AI for, and can you make that official? Can you make that controlled and managed and monitored? It's not about stopping it. I think it would be the wrong thing to stop it, but it is about identifying what is and isn't allowed, um, based on your policies. So I think that's a very important part of it too, as well, is creating those guidelines so that people understand what they can and shouldn't use AI for,
Mm,
and having that visibility in the first place.
mm, that's great. I have seen on Session Knives you have on, yeah, you're delivering a session title, AI legislation, what you need to know. What's the single most important takeaway you want attendees to leave with?
Know your enemy. Know what AI you've got in your tenants. Have an understanding of what you're using AI for right now, and what that means. A lot of organizations, I think, are experimenting. Their people are experimenting, but not many organizations truly know where AI solutions are being used, whether that's agentic AI or not. I'm using the term very very generally here. Um, it's a case of understanding what people are trying to do with AI in your organization, and are you being proactive enough? Are you making sure that they understand the risks? Are you giving them that AI literacy training? And are you putting those guardrails in place to support them? I think that's the main thing. A lot of organizations, I don't think, have a good understanding right now of what AI is being used where, and that's a big, big risk for organizations.
Yeah. Outside your day job, your community involvement is extraordinary. What originally inspired you to become so active in the Microsoft community?
I really enjoyed the first time I presented. I was encouraged by my manager to submit a session at a conference for a solution I had built. And I didn't think we get accepted in a million years because I didn't think anyone would find that interesting. But I was wrong. It got accepted. So I panicked because I might speak publicly quite a lot now. Now you can't get me to not jump on stage and talk about something, but I used to be absolutely terrified of public speaking. And when I tell people this now, they don't believe it, but I absolutely was. And I very much was terrified of speaking the first time I did at that conference. And I think there's a YouTube video somewhere of me which I cannot bring myself to watch, because someone recorded the session. And it was, I've come a long way since then. The reason why I decided to do it that first time, I did it because I wanted to get over the fear of doing it, quite honestly. But the reason I continued to do it after that point was because it was great to hear people in the audience finding the information and the knowledge and my experiences that I shared useful. It made a difference to them, and I helped another person uh, try to do something with the technology or understand the technology better. And that's very rewarding when you see people actually uh, really benefit from your experiences, and it makes their lives easier, and you get to have conversations with them afterwards and you learn something from them as well. I think that is very rewarding, and also seeing other people in the community doing the same thing from their knowledge areas. And as I said in the beginning, speaking to them about the things they're doing and exchanging thoughts and opinions about where the technology is going, the challenges they're facing in their roles, but also meeting people that are in the same job as you are in a different organization, and sort of comparing notes to a certain extent and realizing the challenges you face on a day to day. You're not alone in this. It's not just you. There's other people out there facing the same challenges. And there is a great thing about coming together and discussing those and having that group therapy element of it. But also at the same time, discussing, how do we change this? How do we do this differently? What can we use technology for? How are you using AI in your day-to-day role? And having that exchange of knowledge and ideas, I think that is extremely powerful. And the opportunity that you get as well from having that exposure from a network perspective, from a career perspective, can't be overestimated, really. I think it really does allow you to understand your role a lot more, and the technology a lot at a much broader level than if you didn't become part of the community, if you didn't attend those events. It really
Mm,
helps you upskill and expand your network and really get a better, a different, perhaps if not better, a different perspective of the technology at the much broader level. And I think that's very, very, very beneficial. And that's why I attend events and that's why I speak at events. I remember my life before I was involved in the community, and I can definitely tell you a much more enriched one now, because you make friendships as well within the community. You can present with people together, and you become a better professional as a result. And I think that's, it's great that the community exists. I think we would be at all of us at a disadvantage if it didn't.
mm. I think also one of the topics is mentorship. You are in the Women in Power platform. Can you tell a little bit about this organization, and also how important was mentoring for you in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very passionate about mentoring others, because I benefited from mentoring myself very early in my career, and as I said, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now if someone hadn't really, in a way, mentored me unofficially and said, "No, you should, go for this. Off you go." Um, I'm part of the Women in Power Platform mentorship program. So it is a Microsoft initiative bringing women within the Power Platform space together to mentor and support each other, either on a one-to-one basis or on a group basis. They run a cohort every quarter, so you spend 3 months with your mentor or mentorship group, and every 3 months there is a new cohort. Basically, it's very well organized by Danielle Moon and Shravani Siti, and they do a great work in terms of the mentorship program itself. It's very well supported, and there's a great love and appreciation for them and for all that they do. It's very much a global network, and I encourage anybody that's thinking about mentorship to submit an application once the next cohort opens. We're currently in the middle of a cohort,
Mm,
finishing in a month or two. So for me, I would say mentorship is great if, particularly when you're feeling stuck and you feel like you can't figure out a way you can't figure out a way through or your next step. You're not really sure what the right thing to do is. It could be technically, it could be from a career progression perspective, it could be that you want to try something new, but you're not really sure how to go about it. It could be that you're looking for someone to help you get introduced to people or identify, even just talk to them about where you're at and try and figure out your blind spots or get that fresh perspective as to what you could do. In my life, I've been in a couple of times a bit stuck, and I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go next and what I wanted to do. And it's really helpful to talk to someone about where you're at, because that in itself can help you figure out the answer. But sometimes you might not believe in yourself as much as someone else does, and that it might help you have someone look at you as a person of unlimited potential. You could do anything. Even if you don't believe you could do anything, you could do anything. And if you speak to someone who is a mentor who looks at you with that unlimited potential, they will say to you, well, okay, you are here right now. What if you aimed for insert crazy goal over here? And they might say, oh, I can't do that, or there's no way I could do it. And it's like, but would you want to? Would you like to? Because you can. And it's having that person believe in you and say to you, you can do it. I will support you if you want to do it. Do you want to do it? And having that guidance as well, and not starting from zero, having someone that can help you and use their experiences to give you that knowledge of what lies ahead to a certain extent, and show you the common pitfalls and show you what's important, and help you through it, and have that sounding board. For me, I think everyone should at any point in their life have a mentor, because I think if you don't, you're missing that reflection.
mm.
But I think it's particularly important at moments in your life where you want to make a change or try something new or different. Um, you will know when you need it, because something will be bugging you and you won't know what to do about it. And I think mentorship is great for those moments. But also finding the right mentor is key. You
Mm.
need to find someone who you trust, and who understands you and who has the right experience to support you in the thing you're trying to do. And that's what Women in Power Platform is great at. They match mentors and mentees based on the knowledge of the mentor and what the mentee is looking to get out of the mentorship cohort. So that is very important as well.
Yeah. I think you do so much all the other things, but one which me really impressed is you are in the UK delegation to the United Nations Commissions on the status of women. Uh, how is the status of the women actually?
How is the status of the women? Not great. So it is. I've done this for 3 years now. I've been part of the participant in the UK delegation for the Commission for the Status of Women for 3 years in a row, and it definitely is my favorite and part of the year, but also the one I dread the most because the topics that get discussed on women's experiences globally, as you can imagine, being the UN, we don't really necessarily talk about just the areas where women are struggling, but areas where women are really struggling. And I'm talking about war, conflict,
Okay.
abuse. It can get very, very difficult to just to be in the room and listen to the issues that women are having to face. We are very lucky, and I always have a lot of gratitude for the life that myself as a woman in the UK has. And I grew up in Greece. I'm Greek originally. I didn't have war and conflict in my life as a woman growing up, and I've lived in the developed world all of my life. When you contrast that to what life for a woman is in areas that have been plagued by war and conflict all their life,
Ye-
and we're talking about young girls as well, the horrors that they face, they don't even enter our consciousness necessarily in Europe, but they exist. They happen all the time. There's millions of them that are suffering, and that's what the commissions for the status of women is trying to change. It brings nations together and there's a different theme every year that they look to address. So for example, the theme this year was all about access to justice and legal systems. And one of the things that was discussed was the fact that a lot of women in the world do not have access to justice in the first place, let alone actually getting justice. That's a whole different problem altogether. So it's things that we don't even think about necessarily. It's a very humbling experience, but it's a very eh, I'm grateful to be part of it because A, it gives me perspective. It reminds me how lucky we are, but it also reminds me how long we've got to go. And I try to take what I learned from that into my role and trying to keep it moving forwards. It's obviously a much bigger macro level government countries level event, but it's all about taking those experiences back and identifying what I can do in my role in my organization, in the initiatives I'm involved in, uh, to ensure that we have a better world for women as well. And I'm a mom to a 6-year-old daughter. I want to see progress made in my lifetime for her as well.
Awesome. Yeah, we're running a little bit out of time. I ask you, have you time for a rapid fire round?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, cool. Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
Coffee.
Uh, if you have to choose one tool, Dynamics 365 or Power Platform?
Oh, power platform.
Remote work or home office? Remote work or office?
Oh, if I had to choose one, it would be office because I love seeing people, but ideally it would be 50-50.
Okay. And I don't know, will stress you, but I do a conference, the MC65 con. But what's your favorite Microsoft event?
Oh God, I'm gonna so I yeah, so I obviously run my own user groups and conferences in the UK, but I have to say the one that always has the biggest place in my heart, and I'm so sorry for all of the other ones that I am involved in. It's not that I love them any less, just that from a location and weather wise, the one conference I love is Dynamics Minds because it makes me feel like I'm home almost because it takes place in Slovenia in May. It's always lovely weather. It's sunny. It's organized to perfection by the team behind it. And it's a big conference. It's great to be part of it, and it's definitely my favorite one because it's a conference and a holiday all in one go.
Mm, one thing Microsoft should publish tomorrow.
Oh, a licensing guide that everyone can understand and is straightforward.
Your most used AI tool right now.
Copilot.
One book you recommend to all technology leaders?
It's an old one, but I think particularly relevant right now. It's by Brad Smith from Microsoft. He leads the legal teams within Microsoft. And it's called Tools and Weapons. And it was written almost 10 years ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he talks a lot about artificial intelligence even back then. And the fact that any technological advancement is a tool and a weapon. And he talks about the challenges with introducing technology and from a Microsoft perspective, the fact that sometimes they've even had to sue their own government for the things that they wanted to do with technology or the requests by the government that went against privacy, for example. It's a very, very interesting book, particularly relevant still now because of where we are with AI. And Brad Smith suggested that we should have a license for AI development and use the same way we do driving licenses for driving a car. We don't allow people to drive a car without a license, and that he suggested that perhaps we should introduce a license for creating, developing, and using AI. So yeah, very, very good book.
Your best piece of advice for someone entering tech today?
You need to give it a try, and you won't know everything. It won't be perfect, but what you need to do is just give it a go and keep going.
Okay, then my last question. If you could back and give your younger self one piece of career advice, what will it be?
Don't work so hard. Have some fun as well.
Thank you. Arti, this was so much, yeah, enjoying. It was been fantastic hearing you about your journey from enterprise delivering leaderships, uh, AI, community building, mentorship, and the future of agentic AI. Yeah, for all listeners, I put the links from on the show notes so they can find you. So yeah, thank you, and have a nice day.
Thank you for having me, Miracle. Lovely to be here.